So we accept letters to the editor through our online portal, and I'll just quickly take you through. If you go to, here's our homepage. If you go up to opinion, you will see all the letters that we run. Here it's submit a letter or submit a guest opinion, which is what we call op-eds. So submit a letter, and it's the limit is 160 words. So if your letter is longer than that, it won't go through. And another caveat is always write it in Word or something else and cut and paste it, because it doesn't save it if it doesn't go through. We're asking for your letter, name, part of town, and then wanted to show you when you hit send, letters come in through to our online portal, and then we go through and you can see how many we receive in a day. So we go through and then we will figure out which ones we want to include in our print selection for each day. We try to do a mix, and then we put almost all the letters online.
And there's the limit on opinion pieces are 600 words, right?
Yeah, 620, I think it is.
620, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, did you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, there are two debates in journalism over the last 10, 15 years. One is whether there's much value in newspaper candidate endorsements. Our company largely doesn't do them. And then second is what Sarah was talking about, the value of locally written editorials. I think locally written editorials are very important. They help the community set the agenda. They get people talking about certain things. We have access to people you don't, or at least quicker access. And so we can get answers. And so we can get, our job is to be in touch with the community. And if we see that things should maybe go a certain direction, then we can, through a powerfully written local editorial, start steering things in that direction. And so I think that those are very important. I sign all the ones I do. It's not a column, it is an editorial, but I have to be very careful because I'm the news guy and I'm the opinion guy. And it involves a lot of trust on the part of the reader to accept you as both. And I think so far we've been able to do it, but I'm never gonna opine on, I shouldn't say never, but extremely rarely on anything national, because I have an opinion just like you do, and mine is not any more informed than yours. And so I try to stay away from that stuff, but local stuff, I might know something you don't, and might have an opinion on it that might help us improve ourselves as a community. So those can be very valuable.
All right, I have a fairly simple question for you both. Are you associated with the Sinclair Broadcast Group?
No.
Have you?
No, the Star is owned by Lee Enterprises out of Iowa, not
How
Sinclair.
about you, Dan?
No, WIC Communications out of Sierra Vista. When I was at the Arizona Republic, we also owned the local TV station, and then that was spun off, I think, because of laws that had come into play. So
this is a little deeper question. South Dakota is making national news with our Attorney General and hit and run homicide. Anything new on that issue, Dan?
well, oddly enough, I actually covered this issue. It's funny, you know, one minute you've rarely ever thought about South Dakota, the next year a local expert on one of the biggest stories in South Dakota, plus in the nation. And so the Attorney General was driving down a road and he hit somebody. He says he didn't know it. They discovered the body the next day, and the governor has gotten involved because the investigation went on for 5 months. He ended up with 3 misdemeanor charges, none of them having dealt with actually hitting somebody. And a lot of people thought he got off easy. The governor, Kristi Noem, whose name has been brought up on occasion as a 2024 presidential candidate, she is trying to get him to resign, and there's an impeachment effort underway. The interesting thing about Kristi Noem, and I've learned a lot about her, I'll just be blunt here. You won't like it. I don't care. She's good looking. She's well spoken. She's well connected, and she's super conservative. This she's kind of got that full package going on. We call her Sarah Palin 2.0, but with more brains.
Huh.
And so you will be seeing her, but she had a major misstep in this thing. The court slapped her down last week because she had released videos of the state attorney general being interviewed by the investigators. 3 hours of this. You know how they're in that little interrogation room and whatever. And the court said, no, take those down. You shouldn't have done it, and you can't release anything more going forward on this case till everything is wound up. She did it to put pressure on him to resign. And I think that gives you a little bit of insight into how she acts. And I would say this, I don't think she should be proud of her actions. So I was glad that the courts did that, but she's one to watch. I don't think she'll go anywhere, but it's something for the press to talk about for at least a few months here.
Well, Sarah, you probably don't have any opinion on that one, do you?
Never been to South Dakota.
All right. All right. This has kind of been answered in a way. But how do you measure interest and decide which local news to drop or not, like school, like football, etc.? What things do you hang on to? What things do you drop? And I think you kind of covered it. Want to add to that?
Well, we can, thanks to the wonders of the internet, you can track and see what stories or articles or photos or videos are most popular on your sites. And so that can play a role in saying the amount of resources we're putting into this we're not getting the bang for our buck in that way. For something like high school football, high school sports, they're being covered in a different way. But there are certain things that are just the job of a newspaper, of a news organization, covering City Hall, covering the county, covering public safety, even if things aren't getting a lot of hits. They're core to our role in a democracy. And so it's something that we're going to stay committed to. I am very proud that the Star is committed to what we call enterprise reporting and projects where we really go in depth and really analyze situations and do deep investigative work. That is something that readers over and over and over say that they really do value. And it's something that you're not going to get that kind of local investigation anywhere other than local news.
When you look at the internet and we look at the metrics on there, I've determined one thing, and that is people who spend a lot of time on social media are not normal people. And we have to not treat them like normal people. So we can't take all of our cues from them. And then it's very interesting that the page views online, it's right, you can track the stories, but what I call the two-headed baby stories, those crime stories or those weird stories, will just do 10 times the volume that a serious, even investigative piece or enterprise like Sarah was talking about will do. And so we cannot go and just cover all of those things because it's like cotton candy after a while. It's like, it looks good, but it's just not very filling. And so we have to be really careful of how we're doing it. So I'm very surprised as I travel to our small papers here, how many people are content to wait for that print edition to hit the doorstep to get the bulk of their local news. Not that our websites aren't doing well, but it's that they're okay with it because there's not a lot of things that are alarming or urgent or breaking news in these places. And so they're content to just wait for that. And so the fact that they pay for it tells me, and they keep paying for it, tells me that you're hitting on the right buttons there. But it is so important, as Sarah said, you got to get out there. You got to know your audience, you got to talk to them, and then you have to be open to the fact that things are changing. When I moved to Green Valley 12 years ago, old, white, conservative. That's what I was told over and over and over again. I could see almost immediately that either that wasn't the case or it was changing. And so I just had to be open to this. And so we constantly have these changing markets, and we just have to have our finger on the pulse there.
Well,
Follow-up question for you, Paul,
yeah.
for both Sarah and Dan. What are your policies or your procedures in selecting an editorial from a reader to print?
We are looking for, oops, sorry, I just stepped on my dog under my desk. Um, um, she, so we are looking for guest opinions, op-eds that share a perspective that brings something new to the reader, something new to the conversation or the argument. Maybe you're a CPA and you have some opinions and insights on tax proposals, or you have, you're a volunteer with a food bank and you see the situation from a certain perspective. So we're looking for things that are accurate, of course, that have interest. I'm always more partial to someone sharing their own experience as part of the bigger picture. So we know, because as readers, we respond to individual stories. So I'm looking for that sort of personal connection, as opposed to just sort of a white paper. Anyone could have written this about any particular current event, and also for a local angle that that we're not going to get any, like, I give the example, if you're a college student, Social Security looks a heck of a lot different than it does if you're 58 or 64. So bringing your perspective to an issue is important. And I'm looking for pieces that tell me something I don't know, help me get to know my community, are well written. You don't have to be a professional writer at all. I'm happy to work with folks on that. And something that stays away from getting inside someone else's head, like making broad statements about what Democrats think or what Republicans think, or presuming what you know.
That's good. Dan, you anything else on that one?
Yeah, maybe I've just gotten overly sensitive over the past year, but I have found myself a couple of times keeping stuff out of the opinion pages or even the news pages, or putting stuff in that that addresses the mood of the community at the time. So this has been a really rough year, and we've had a lot of negative things going on, and a lot of death, and a lot of fear. And there are some days when people will call me, and they're right, and they say, could we have something happy in the paper? Now, happy is not the way I'm bent, but I get it. And there have been times when we have said, you know what, we're going to go happy. It doesn't mean we're keeping important news from you, but it just means that, you know what, we kind of need a break. And you are inviting us into your home through our newspaper, and we are telling you that we get it. There are some times when you are just, you're just full. And so we want to cut you a little bit of a break and give you something that's more encouraging. So I've been paying more attention to that. And I think and everything Sarah said, I completely agree with that. But sometimes we just address things and just, yeah, you know what, we're just going to be nice today. So.
Okay, I have something that kind of ties into that. Do you think your papers have done a good job of covering COVID, and what do you regret not focusing on more?
Boy, I would say that if we were to count all of the stories on COVID we've done over the last 11 months, we would have, it would be 300 to 400 easily. I feel like we've done an okay job. I don't know specifically That's a hard question. I don't know specifically what we would do different, but every day brought something different with this virus. And whether it was affecting us very locally or nationally, or we lost someone in the community who was well known or whatever. And so we've had to just do a lot of pivoting and changing and addressing stuff. I have tried to be very attentive to the community and what they need in all of this. And we're really trying to stay on top of it with the vaccine availability, which means just patience. We've done 2 town halls. One was back in, I think it was April, and then one in January. The one in January had about 1,000 people listening in. And so we've tried to address the questions that way. But this virus has been a kind of a moving target. And so I'm happy with what we have been able to accomplish with the amount of staff we have, but we can always do better.
Could you quickly tell us about how the town halls work?
The first one was by telephone, and that's because it's Green Valley, and it was April, and since then, a lot of us have learned how to use Zoom, haven't we? Which is kind of an interesting little phenomenon. So that one was, we got some experts together, and we said, okay, this is what we know right now. We got the hospital, do you have beds? Do you have staffing? Do you have, the proper equipment? Do you, what do we know about this thing? And again, this is April, when we all thought we'd be back to normal by June at the latest. So then the next one was in January, and we were answering a lot of the same questions, and the vaccines were about to roll out, and how do you know you can trust them? Can you trust them? Have they gone through the testing process? And if I've had the shingles shot, can I get that vaccine shot? Little things like that. And then I will tell you, it's stunning how many people do not have access or do not use a computer. And so these things that we would just Google very quickly, they're waiting for the newspaper to tell them this. And that is a heavy burden sometimes. And I cannot tell you how many phone calls I have taken from people in tears over fears that they won't get the vaccine, or they don't know if it's a good thing or whatever. So I know a lot of people, and I have no problem pulling strings to get answers for some of these people. And we've been doing that over the last 2 or 3 months since the vaccine's been out, and just trying to calm people down. There are a lot of people who are alone out there, and there's a lot of fear. So I'm looking so forward to getting past that.
I'm assuming Green Valley's different in that aspect than Tucson. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's the same sort of people have the same concerns, the same, maybe the computer usage might be a little different, but we get those calls too from people just desperate, trying to find the vaccine and how are they going to get it. We did, when we were, it was a year ago next week, since I came to work from home, and our newsroom pretty much closed. And so we've all been isolated, and we decided in the opinion section that we would host reader chats. We thought we'd do it 1 or 2 times. And it's turned into a weekly thing, Thursdays at 2. And a lot of the people who participate, I recognize some names here. A lot of the folks who participate are the only humans in their house, just like me. And it's been sort of a way to outreach and build community in a way that wasn't something we anticipated doing, but it's something that we're glad to be able to offer.
Okay, good. Here's a question for you. When using photos, sometimes why do you use different photos for print and online? Or is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case sometimes. Online, of course, you can put 10 photos up there, whereas in print, maybe you only have a couple of them. And so that's sometimes why you will see that. However, when you post a story online, let's just say whatever it is, every story online should have some sort of an image with it because it draws attention. So oftentimes, if you're writing about an upcoming festival, you might pull a photo from last year's festival because that's going to get attention. That last year festival photo generally won't make it in print. So there are definitely some differences there, but online you generally get a whole lot more because we have lots and lots of room.
How do you feel with or filter out conspiracy theories, hate talk, and fake news? How do you do that?
Well, fake news is, I mean, part of it is we have to be really on top of what's out there in the news environment, what is real and what's not, and what are just rumors. I will go to some of the fact-checking services that are out there and use those. But we actually had a discussion within our opinion department not too long ago about, maybe we should just publish some of these crazy conspiracy theory letters that come in, just to show how nuts they are and what people are believing. And I said no, because we're not giving them, we're not lending our credibility to their fantasies. So it's vigilance, it's being aware of what people are talking about and what's real and what's not, and not being afraid to write back and say, this is not factual, we're not going to run it.
Sarah,
Yeah.
does it help if people add footnotes with references to their sources?
Absolutely, yeah. We do want, we are making a particular ask if you have a link, something to include in the notes part of that. But just because Fox News or Drudge Report or someone MoveOn.org said something doesn't make it factual. So that can be a difficult conversation. And Dan, I'm sure you've enjoyed those interactions as well.
I'm in the middle of one right now, and I don't mind those conversations because it comes down to common sense. And it is so strange that some of the best educated, intelligent people are swallowing the crap that we have seen over the last 4 years. I can say it. And I'm stunned at that. And I applaud you for not putting those letters in with the conspiracy theories, because there are people who are going to look at that and say, see, that they're putting it in because they know there's something to it, because they don't think like we do. They don't think like people who have these critical thinking skills and go, there's just no way on earth that could be true. The Epic Times, sorry, not a legitimate source.
Nope.
And so there's a guy right now going back and forth on a quote from Joe Biden that shows he wants to take over the world through executive orders, and they had pulled it out of context. I sent him a fact check on it and said, look, and he goes, oh, well, of course you're going to do this. Well, who checks the fact checkers? And if I hear that one more time, I'm going to scream. This was from the Associated Press. I said, really? You're calling the Associated Press a left-wing operation? Come on, man. The fake news is the things that you just don't want to accept in the face of all the fact checking, the accuracy of it, and it goes on all the time. I am so frustrated by this but then I realize we're dealing with really probably 1 or 2% of people out there, and it's diminishing, I hope. And I think, why am I spinning my wheels on this? These people are not worth the time. We have so many issues as a nation to tackle, and now we can finally take the focus off the leader and put it on the issues, which is what we've been missing for the last 4 years. And Paul, I think it might be a good time to mention what you and I discussed the other night. the state of South Dakota has one member in the House of Representatives because there's just not many people live here. And he was through the newsroom the other day, and he's a staunch conservative. And we had a nice discussion about the people who were very committed to Donald Trump who are now kind of backing off. And he tried to turn the tables on us and said, yeah, it's really in vogue these days to go after people who were once aligned with Trump. And I said, no, it's not in vogue. It's absolutely imperative because they were aligned with him for all the wrong reasons. And then we talked about fake news. And I said, that's the one thing that I wish people had stood up against, because fake news was anything he didn't like. And I said, this has done not irreparable, but it's done tremendous damage to the news industry. And we're going to be climbing back from that one for a long, long time. And he said, well, you know, I stood up against Trump for this and this and this. And it's true, he has. And I said, but you know what? You all didn't get together as one voice. Go to him. You don't have to do it in front of the media and tell him, you know what? Back off on this because you look like a clown and you're making us look like clowns. And I said, why did you not go together as a group and demand that he back off on some of these things he was doing? And he had no answer for that. And so we are really, we were up against it anyway in this industry because of what's happening with the revenue streams and everything. We didn't need the fake news baloney that he has introduced into now the lexicon, and I just hate it and I resent it, and I'm really, really upset about it.
I will also say you asked about threats,
Mhm.
and I was thinking, you know, email, phone calls, letters to my house, sort of things. Journalists who have been calling journalists the enemies of the people endangers people. I've had students, I've had colleagues who have been pushed or yelled at or abused out in the field covering different events. It's un-American, it's not productive, and yeah, like Dan, you can tell I take umbrage at it.
It's kind of an impossible situation, isn't it? The fake news argument. I don't know if there will ever be universal agreement on anything like that.
Well, one other question to follow up for the two of you. We're getting close to the end of the hour. So, you know, you both are talking to a Democratic club. So the question I have for the two of you, what two questions, and Dan, happy or sad, would you like to ask the Republican Party here in Tucson, Green Valley?
Okay, it'll be sad for you.
Thank you.
AOC, what is it about her that is so enchanting? Because I see someone who has the potential to be a leader, but who has been thrust into a leadership role, probably because she really wants that limelight. I think she enjoys it. But whenever she opens her mouth, I find I'm never learning anything. Yet you seem to just idolize this person. I don't get it. My second question would be, why do you get upset when I call you the Democrat Party?
It's not accurate.
I know. AP
Thank you,
actually,
Sarah.
AP has a good story on that today, by the way. So that's why it was on the forefront of my mind. I know why you get upset, and Republicans use it just to tweak you. But the AOC thing, I don't get it. I do not get it. I do not get it. So
questions that I have for Republicans, or that I have,
Yes.
Why have you made, in the face of one thing that I will preface this, when we did our endorsement interviews in the fall, every single Republican candidate we asked about masks said they either wouldn't wear one, didn't support a mandate, refused, only wore them when they were around sick people. My question is, why have you politicized something that is a basic public safety measure? And I say this with, the New York Times has a really moving piece, a video opinion piece today. They went and inside the ICU in a Phoenix hospital, and it's from the nurse's point of view, and it really made me angry that this has become a basic public health issue, has somehow become a litmus test for Republicans. So I think that's one question. And the other question is, what do you see in Donald Trump that I don't see?
Good one. That's a wide open one, isn't it?
Yeah, do you ever take papers that are written in longhand rather than typed or computerized?
It's Green Valley, of course.
It's Green Valley.
Yeah, of course I do.
We do not, just simply because we don't have the staff to, well, right now we don't have an address, but in general, no, we prefer computer. Email is fine, but typed.
Could I ask both of you how your newsrooms look, or how are they different or similar in any way? How's your setup right now, news-wise, physically?
We are all working from home at the Star, and before the pandemic, the Star building at 4850 South Park was put on the market, entirely separate, nothing to do with the pandemic. But interestingly, so it sold a few months ago. So we've been having to get all of our stuff out, and I didn't realize how convenient it was to have a whole other office, someplace that was not my house, where I could have a lot of stuff, because now that stuff is in my house. But so we're all working from home, and we're going to have 2 locations, but it's not going to be a newsroom like the one we left. It's going to be more of a stop in, plug in your laptop, and then go about your day, place for meetings, that sort of stuff, which I'm sad about. I miss the newsroom.
How was the newsroom where you left? How many people would be there?
Oh, far fewer than in previous years, but I don't know, 30, 40 people maybe.
Wow.
About, it depends on different times of the day, but there's nothing better than a newsroom on election night. I will say that.
I'm sure. How about you, Dan?
I would say out of the last 11 months of COVID, we have been in the newsroom, probably 9 of those, maybe a little bit more. Newsroom people feed off each other, and it's imperative that they are all in that one place. You like it when reporters aren't at their desks, because it means that they're out in the community covering news, but it is very important because one person will have an idea and the other one will jump in, and then pretty soon you have a good conversation that leads to a really good story. So we are in the newsroom. We are at the Green Valley Village. We moved there last summer, and the plan is that in about 2.5 years, sorry, it's my light again. That we are going to put up a building near where Manuel's restaurant is. We already own the land, and that is the hope. We do not want to rent. We want to own.
Okay.
Where do they get their papers printed?
Oh, where do you get your papers printed is a question like that.
The Star is now printed in Phoenix, and so that has pushed our deadlines up, unfortunately. But yeah, it's printed in a large facility that prints a lot of different publications up in Phoenix.
Okay.
We are printed in Sierra Vista, which is where our company headquarters is.
And here's maybe the last question, unless we get another one. What's the big issue in Green Valley after the GVR election? Dan.
Oh, I want that election to be over. You know what? Making sure everybody gets the shot, I think, is the thing. That's really what we've been really focused on. And then it has been very interesting to watch the local Republican club, which changes its name every other month, it seems. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Republicans do in the midterm elections, and our Republican club, for the first time ever, now has a headquarters open year round, and they're very active. They're very Trumpian, and they are. I'm curious to see what the party looks like here, particularly after this weekend because of the CPAC meeting and Donald Trump speaking, I think, tomorrow and whatever. So to me, that's just personally interesting.
You think he'll mention that he won the election a few times?
I think he's going to mention that it was stolen, and yeah, that
Just a few times, huh?
right, yeah, and go back to what Sarah said earlier. How often do you keep dragging this out into your letters to the editor and all that type of stuff? And it's just like, man, I am over this. And maybe it's just my personal disdain for him and what he did to the country. And I know I hear from a lot of people who disagree, but I really struggle to come up with much of anything good that came out of this.
Right.
And he has already stated that he wants to be on the ballot in 2024 just to get back at the people who voted against him during the impeachment. And so really, and that's your platform, is revenge. So
yeah, vindictive.
Why can't people see this? Why can't people see this? I am stumped, and I'm really discouraged with a lot of Americans, quite honestly.
I think this might be our last question. Phil Nicolay has his blue hand up.
You touched on the answer in terms of preferring to have things written out in longhand. Because of the limitation, the word limitation, sometimes if you have a considerable amount of information you want to convey, having it more of in a bulleted format allows you to get more bang for the buck. And I just wondered, are you more apt to print something that's written out longhand that might have less information, or something that's bulleted that has more information?
We're looking for, I think it's a mix of both can be good. If you're having, and I'm gonna just refer to sort of narrative which is probably not the best term, but written out in terms of making your argument, making your case, I think is you're trying to share a perspective, convey information, persuade people, and something that is written in a way that is to persuade someone can include like a couple bulleted points. Like if you're writing about poverty, you could do a couple bulleted points about 1 in 5 children in Arizona lives in poverty, a couple facts, but just a list of bulleted points. That's more of a memo, I guess. And it's not something that I think readers would respond to in the same way as expressing yourself in a more comprehensive manner.
Okay, I think we have to kind of wrap up. Pam Duchesne said there's already a 2024 sign, Trump by Culver's. So that'd be nice. And thank you both so much for sharing your time with us. And this is from Mallory. This is very interesting. Enjoyed your presentation. Excellent. You guys, I will second that emotion. Very, very good.
Thank you for having us.
Dan, you knocked it out of the park with a sports phrase. And Sarah, thank you very much for your input. It's been a pleasure for the both of us. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. Please visit our website for more information and look for the recording on this on our Facebook coming up the next week. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.